So, guys, I have to make a couple of important announcements that unfortunately there's been a very bad illness that's been going around the hospital, like a bad sinus infection. So, I do have to do this very candidly. And then also, too, you know what, if you're feeling like any type of sick signs like congestion or coughing or, or anything like that, always just talk to somebody, especially a nurse in your family. And it's also something where my brother has it, so now I'm taking care of him, so I can't really be on camera. So, I do want to talk a little bit about AEW. And the other thing before I start is that, I've told everybody that I've had a record going to all the AEW US shows since All Out 2023, the post CM Punk show. And I will say that I'm not sure I'm going to go to the Los Angeles show just because AEW has been really setting itself back, and I've not really been enjoying the matches. And to me, it doesn't really feel like a company that wants to do better. I feel like it's a company that is like, Tony Khan wants to do what Tony Khan wants to do, and that's not really good. You have to think about going bigger and better. And you also have to think about being your best critic and always improving unless you're profitable, So he needs, somebody like Tarantino or Brian Reynolds, who made Deadpool, and all those people. They have the right not to break their formula, but Tony needs to really break his formula. But like I said, I really think the emphasis is that he doesn't really care. So if I'm going to go to a pay-per-view, I'm really going to talk about it every single week and be like, okay, does this show make me want to go more to an AEW pay-per-view or not? So the first thing that I want to say with Dynamite is that I want to talk about what they did right and what they did wrong. I think the biggest thing that they did right tonight is that I really appreciate the direction of Ricochet. That I like the fact that he actually stabbed Swerve Strickland with scissors, and he's really embracing the heel. The big thing he just has to do is that, he just can't be smiling and a little giddy. He has to learn that that's really hurting his character. But otherwise, I really want to see more of this. And I really think that's a good follow-up. That, yes, he's kind of been made like the butt of all jokes, and he needs to respond accordingly. So, it's that thing, too. People, play a lot of pranks on him with toilet paper, and now he's responding with a bunch of scissor shots and all that, really. So it's a great type of, right amount of making fun of him to now he needs to kind of take it to the other direction, really. And I think that there's a couple things that they can do. I think like Ricochet versus Swerve would be a great match for AEW Grand Slam. That would be a really good one. And then also it could be a match where it's like, okay, well, if Ricochet wins, he can join the Hurt Syndicate, because they'll be like, okay, we see that you're serious, we see that you're ruthless, and maybe you need a little bit more polishing. And Ricochet's journey in AEW really needs to just be about, his journey really needs just to be about, developing a character that actually works, really. And they just have to really run with it. So I'm really happy to see him go in a very positive direction for his character. He just has to be a little bit more, he has to kind of get rid of that hamming it up, life of the party, having kind of fun with it type of thing, And as I said, Kyle Fletcher has that issue as well, really. Another big positive tonight that I'm going to say is that Will Ospreay was not on the card. That, he has really great matches, but the problem is that you can't overutilize Will Ospreay. You overutilize him too much, what's going to happen is that it's going to feel a little boring and old. Another positive is that Powerhouse Hobbs had a squash match. Honestly, they need to build Hobbs to something. And I really think that there's a couple directions. He can go through Don Callis family, and I think that that's right in front of him. The other thing that I could say is that he could have a feud with MJF or other wrestlers on the roster that I feel would be a good challenge for him. I think that they really have to use this year to be like, okay, Hobbs is maybe one of the last people that they have that's an AEW original that they can actually make a megastar. So definitely it's nut up or shut up time. And I think that I should do a fantasy booking of how I would book Hobbs. And I think that, you can make him either the ROH champion going after Jericho, Big Bill, and the Bad Apple, or you can do something like have him and MJF feud, or you can do something like have him join the rated FTR because, the Death Riders are 5 people, I believe. So, you know, definitely, Hobbs versus Claudio would be a great thing, really. So there's a lot that they can do. The other thing that I'll say is that I like MJF, because honestly, he's about getting the AEW championship. So, that's good. It's showing that, okay, the shit that he's doing with Adam Cole, that's completely dead. That's old shit, really. So I really, really, really appreciate that. Because they have to kind of tell the audience, they have to tell everybody, okay, this is going on for over 18 months. It's over. This is his next direction. And that's that. And the other thing that I liked about this show is that they set up, it's going to be the learning tree with Chris Jericho versus FTR with Adam Copeland at Collision. So that's definitely a great main event. Chris Jericho versus Adam Copeland. So, if you definitely want to sell out that show, that's a good card. So those are all really the positives. And I want to talk about, there was a bunch of negatives. That first of all, they had the opening song that goes, "I'm so excited. I know, I want to." That's a horrible, horrible, horrible song. You have to have Metallica or something very heavy metal, because that song is too, I would say, playful, or too happy, or too kiddie. It's too joyous. I think with professional wrestling, you want something with a little bit more grit. So, that's a very terrible song. And I also don't like how they have Big Boom AJ and the Costco guys in the opening credits, because that's a little too, they had one great match at Full Gear, and that got a lot of attention, but they don't really deserve to kind of be in the opening credits, really, because they've not done that much. It's almost like if they had Donald Trump in the opening credits of Monday Night Raw, because he's the president, and the Battle of the Billionaires match. It just feels a little too shoehorning. A lot of the matches I didn't care about. The only match that I liked on the card was the Hurt Syndicate versus the Acclaimed, because that was a really good, big man versus small man type of match. And then the character storytelling of, okay, Max Caster is being kind of a loudmouth prick, really. So Anthony Bowen's kind of a little sick of it. So that was the only match I liked. But I think every other match I didn't really care. You kind of just knew where they were going to go. You know that, Orange Cassidy, why should I care about anything that he does? Because he's a comedy wrestler. Swerve versus Roderick Strong versus somebody else. I don't remember, but I don't care about Roderick Strong. He sounds like Johnny Knoxville. Jamie Hayter versus, Jamie Hayter versus Julia Hart, if I'm saying it correctly. You know what? I don't really care about that. And then the main event, you obviously know Adam Copeland's going to win, and all that stuff, really. So it was either predictable or just people I didn't really care about. So that wasn't good. And then the other thing I want to say before I forget is that I appreciate the Acclaimed, because I like that they're going to split them up. And like I said, I really think they need to have a match at Grand Slam. And as I said, the winner just joins the Hurt Syndicate. That would be Anthony Bowens. Because I think the problem with Max Caster, he's a little bit too much like Riley Freeman. So I don't want to see MVP do something okay, well, Max Caster, you're kind of you're kind of really funny. So it's gonna be he's trying to tolerate him until he doesn't tolerate him anymore. We need to kind of have Anthony Bowens jump into it, and maybe Max Caster and Billy Gunn kind of do a storyline where they tag team together. Max Caster kind of learns, okay, there is a time that he just needs to kind of humble himself, go from that young kid to kind of a more mature thing. So I think that's a good storyline. So the stuff with the Acclaim was really good. You had wrestlers that I cared about, and that was the only match that I liked, really. And then also through the show, I got a subscription with HBO Max that says no commercials. Why am I seeing commercials? So that doesn't make any sense. And the other thing that I will say that I did not like is the whole Adam Cope thing. He changed the name to Cope. Like, that's a stupid ass name. You might as well make John Cena's name Felix, or you might as well do something like how should I kind of say this? That you do something like you make Vince McMahon, you change the name to Kennedy, or you do something, or you do something like you get what I'm trying to say. You change AJ Styles' name to Neil. His middle name is Alan Neil Jones, if I'm correct. It's just really, really stupid, and it kind of almost comes off like maybe an old man who doesn't care anymore, or an old man that may think he can, like that just kind of comes off as like an old man that may be like, okay, I don't really care anymore, so I do something that's a little silly or festive, like how he's wearing like the face paint last year with Sting, or like how CM Punk was doing that. Like, it feels like a little too much, like having a little too much fun, really. And sometimes that works, but sometimes it's like, as I said, like, it doesn't work. You know, so they just have to really kind of like really think about what's actually going to draw, what actually is kind of cringeworthy. So that's all you have to really say and stuff like that. So I think overall, when I look at the show, there's definitely a lot more negatives than positives. But I really am very, very hopeful. But I think the saving grace for me is I really want to see what they're going to do with Max Caster versus Anthony Bowens. Is it going to lead to one of them joining the Hurt Syndicate? Is it going to lead to the Hurt Syndicate taking over AEW? Moxley versus MJF would be a really great dynamic because that's something new and fresh. And they have to really think about, what's going to be the Grand Slam card. And then after they do that, they just have less than a month to AEW Revolution. And both are major shows. You have to make sure the Australia show is a banger. And you got to also make sure your first U.S. show for the year is a banger. And like I've said, that I think that if I want to go to the Los Angeles show, I would say right now the answer would be yes, because I really want to see what they do with Max Caster and Anthony Bowens. I think that'll be a really, really great match. And I also want to see what they do with MJF, because I think MJF versus John Moxley would be a good future match. I also think that Adam Copeland versus John Moxley would be a really, really great match. And there's one more thing I want to talk about. That Hook did a promo, and he did a very, very, very horrible job. Like, he honestly sounds like a high schooler trying to act tough that smoked a bunch of cigarettes. He has like the deep voice, really. But they need to kind of fire the person who did the cinematography. Like, you need to have more close-up shots. Maybe you need to film from different side angles. You need to kind of have him have some attitude. Don't have somebody talk in his pocket, talk with his hands in his pocket, and be like, yeah, I'm going to challenge you next week. He sounds like an emo version of Sylvester Stallone's as a teenager. Like, honestly, that's god awful. I know, like, Christian and Hook are going to have a great match, but I also am a little worried because I don't want to see Hook take his contract, because it's going to turn into a bunch of crap where we want Christian to cash it in, and then he gets sabotaged by somebody, then it never happens, or Christian may become impatient, make a 3-3 way, and then lose it, and then I still want to see that, really, So that was also bad as well, really. This show had a lot of bad stuff, but like I said, I think that what would be a good draw is that if you get to Max Caster versus Anthony Bowens, and that they're smart enough to do it at either Grand Slam or Revolution, you get to Ricochet versus Swerve, and they're smart enough to do it at Grand Slam or Revolution, and then you get to MJF versus Adam Copeland. Adam Copeland versus John Moxley. That would be a really great match for Grand Slam, and then MJF versus John Moxley at Revolution. You have to think about your pay-per-view shows. And like, again, it's a little bit worrisome because we don't know what Tony's going to do. He may do something like be like, okay, the pay-per-view matches because I care about the television ratings. I'm just going to save them for television shows. There's a lot of stuff that he can hold off to pay-per-views. Definitely, you know what? I'm going to do some fantasy booking videos when I have time. And then the other thing that I want to do is definitely make a list of wrestlers that they have that could be big stars, or underutilized wrestlers that could be really big stars. But AEW has a lot of work to do. This was not a good show, and but there's definitely some hope of stuff that I would like to see in the future for pay-per-views if they go in that direction.